Tonight we've got the hospital manager from the Seaside Seabird Sanctuary. That is not easy to say. They have got some birds to be able to show us. So we welcome Keith Wilkins and his daughter.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jeff, for the introduction. It's great to see all of you here. As Jeff did mention, I am Keith Wilkins. I am the hospital manager at the Seaside Seabird Sanctuary. Next to me is Kayla, who is assisting me. And let me start off by saying, first of all, how much of an honor on behalf of everyone at the Seabird Sanctuary, how much of an honor it is to for you to invite us out here and speak with you tonight. It's a great honor. On a personal note, I will say also that it is a huge honor for me to be out here speaking with you, as I have been a proud Seminole resident for 32 years. And I can tell you right now, as far as I'm concerned, I will not be living in another city. If it's up to me, I will be living here in Seminole for the rest of my time on this earth. I love this place. Also, with that said, I would like to congratulate both Mayor Waters and all the residents and everyone involved with the city of Seminole for, as I'm sure most of you have heard, recently out of the top 100 cities in the state of Florida, Seminole was voted the 51st safest city in the state of Florida.
No, I didn't know that.
Honestly,
Wow.
I think we got the shaft there. I think we should have been much higher than
Out of
that.
about 410 cities.
Was that about 410? Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe I only read they only showed the top 100.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
it.
there's over 400 cities, yeah.
So congratulations everybody in Seminole, because that's everybody's doing there. But anyway, once again, like I said, thank you so much for asking us out here. It is our pleasure. I got a short little slideshow I'm going to show you guys, give you a little brief history about us, about what we do, and about what we're looking forward towards in the future. And then towards the end of it, I've got a couple of birds I'm going to bring out and show you, and give you a little educational part about the birds and about what we do at the sanctuary, and then also open for any questions anybody may have at the end. So let's go first of all. Okay, the origins of the sanctuary. We were actually founded, formed, and opened up September of last year. We took over the facilities in Indian Shores of a former sanctuary that was on there, that had been there since the early 70s. So I'm sure, for those of you, if you haven't come out to visit the Seaside Seabird Sanctuary, I'm sure you were, at one point in time or another, have probably visited the former sanctuary that was there. December 15th is when we actually became a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And from the attorneys involved in pushing that through, they said that was the fastest turnaround they've ever seen for a nonprofit organization to get a 501c. So we're very honored about that. So like I said, there's a lot of confusion, so I do want to reiterate the fact that we are a different organization. Like I said, a lot of you are probably familiar with the former entity that was there. So this is a different organization, so it's different owners, different management. Our mission, it's very simple: rescue, rehabilitate, and release injured, sick, and orphaned birds. We are called the Seabird Sanctuary, but we take in all kinds of birds. We have a hotline you can call, and anytime you spot a sick, injured, or orphaned bird, you can call us. We will come and rescue it. Or if you happen to come across one on your own, you can bring it into us if you're able to. And much like going to if you were to go to the hospital because you were under the weather or injured in any way, it works the same way at our sanctuary. When a bird comes in, whether it's rescued or brought into us, it goes into the hospital. We examine it for any injuries or any sicknesses that it may have. We diagnose it, treat it. The end goal, of course, is to rehabilitate the bird and try and to get it so it can be released back into the wild. Now, of course, unfortunately, sometimes due to certain injuries, not every bird can be saved. And sometimes they're whatever their injury may be, it may not be life-threatening. However, it is something that would prevent us from releasing it back out into the wild. In a little while, I'm going to bring out two examples of that. Two birds we have that are permanently disabled birds. They cannot be released back into the wild because of their disability would not allow them to be able to survive in the wild. However, for the birds like that, we do keep them at the sanctuary as educational birds. Currently, right now at the sanctuary, we have over 120 different permanently disabled birds of all kinds. Visitors can come out 7 days a week, every day of the year, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and walk through the sanctuary and take a look at all the permanently disabled birds that we have on site. It's free admission. And those birds are there for the sole purpose since they can't be released for two reasons. First of all, at least so they can still have a life, and unfortunately, so they wouldn't be euthanized, where in some cases some people would, and others too to help educate the public and the community about what does happen to these birds, because a large percentage of the injuries that all wildlife here walks into, but also wild birds, is a large percentage of it is because of man. It could be different things. Obviously down here living in the Bay Area, we all know this is what's one of the most common birds everybody sees here out on the beach. Okay, pelicans, right. Biggest ones with pelicans is obviously fishermen. Pelicans are very friendly. A lot of the birds are very friendly here, especially out on the beach. They've gotten very used to humans. And pelicans, I'm sure if you fish yourself or you've been around seeing people fish, what do you see hanging out near the fishermen all the time? Pelicans, sitting there waiting for the fishermen to catch a fish. And, they're a wild animal. Animals are creatures of opportunity. If they see a fish come out of the water caught by a fisherman, they're going after that fish if they have the opportunity. Unfortunately, usually that fish has a hook in it. So the hook usually goes into the bird one way or another. As a matter of fact, later on, as we wrap up, you can walk up to the table here. I do have displays of some actual different hooks and sinkers and that we have actually either pulled out of a bird, that it was either embedded in its wing or somewhere on its body, or it's actually swallowed. And a lot of what we do at the sanctuary too is to help, whether it's out on presentations like this or there at the sanctuary, is to help educate the public, help educate the community about what to do if accidents do happen and you're fishing and you hook a bird. What you should do, the proper way to take out a hook, to never cut the line. A lot of fishermen will do that. They'll just think we'll cut the line and then the bird can fly away free. Unfortunately, that line gets tangled up somewhere eventually. It can sometimes tangle around the bird. It can choke it. It can make it to where it wrap around its neck and just where it can't eat any fish because it can't get its throat open enough. We've seen them to where the lines will wrap around the legs, wrap around the wings, cut off the circulation, and subsequently, eventually, the bird loses a wing, loses the use of a leg. And then, of course, once that happens, it's susceptible to predators, can't hunt properly. So that's one of the things. Another thing is, believe we've all done it. I've done it when I was a kid. And believe me, I won't hold it against you if you raise your hand into how many people have fed the wild birds. Fed the wild birds. Feed ducks bread, thrown something to a bird. Although we know your hearts are in the right place and you have great intentions, that is one of the things you should really never please do, is feed the wild birds or any wild animal for that matter. Trust me when I say the birds have no problems finding their own food. There's plenty of it out there for them. The problem is, if you do have to, feel the need to feed a wild bird, like, do a bird feeder for songbirds, give it something it would naturally eat. Unfortunately, a lot of people tend to feed birds human food. And, a lot of the human food's not even good for us. It's even worse for birds. Their digestive systems are much different than ours. Without trying to get graphic or anything, I can't tell you how many cases we've had of birds coming in, and we've actually, after necropsies were done afterwards, and that after the birds died, and the human food we pulled out that had actually blocked their intestinal tract. Hot dogs, stuff like that. Hot dogs are a big thing. Everybody seems to like to throw Seabird's hot dogs. And it causes problems. It blocks their intestines. They can't digest food anymore. Feeding bread to birds. Bread, they get no nutritional value from bread. But bread is very filling, as I'm sure everybody knows. The birds fill up on the bread, get no nutritional value from that. They don't go and eat the stuff that they should be eating, and they end up being malnourished. And then we see them come in our hospital. Somebody mentioned seagulls a few minutes ago. Little funny anecdote about that, I'll tell you, that most people find very amusing is, first of all, there is no such thing as a seagull. There's gulls. There's laughing gulls, there's herring gulls, there's Arctic gulls, lava gulls. There is no such thing as a seagull. One of those words that somewhere along the line someone stuck C in front of it, and now everybody calls it seagull. Has anybody ever come across an injured bird or something out there? Probably a great big deal of you have. And that's what we're there for. If you spot an injured bird, one that's sick or orphan, give us a call. I definitely have our information here. You can please take with you. Give us a call. Even if you don't give us a call, give another professional a call that can help. These birds are very, very important to our ecosystem and to our environment. Birds are indicators of things going wrong in the environment that leads to warning humans. And a few things you should know, we have a lot of common misconceptions about birds. I would like to cover, how many has heard the old saying, never touch a baby bird? Okay, all right. Never touch a baby bird. Can someone tell me why?
The mother rejects it.
Mother rejects it because why?
Smells us.
Because it smells the human scent on the bird, right? It's an old wives' tale. Birds have a very extremely poor sense of smell. That is the sense. That is the least active sense they have. The one main exception to that is the turkey vulture. Turkey vulture has have a very keen sense of smell. So much that the black vultures will actually look for the turkey vultures and see where they're heading, and they'll go and then try and steal the food from them. That's one of your main exceptions. For the most part, birds have virtually no sense of smell. You can touch a baby bird, and the parents will have no idea it was touched by a human. It can't smell it. Now, am I promoting that you go out there and touch it, touch all birds? No. The reason I bring that up is, though, if you do see baby birds, especially like right now, we're coming towards the end of our baby bird season, and songbirds, they had laid all their eggs, they're all hatching now, and because of that, we get a lot of baby birds in our hospital. We are loaded right now. And a lot of that is because, for several reasons, but the babies have hatched. They're getting to the stage to where they need to learn how to fly now. And so, how many people think baby birds learn to fly right from the nest? How many think they learn to fly from the ground? And a lot of you didn't raise your hand, so I don't know where you think they're flying. Baby birds actually learn to fly from the ground up. So when they become a fledgling, it's time for them to leave the nest. One of two things will happen. Usually the parent bird will kick them out of the nest, say, okay, you've freeloaded enough, get out, learn to fly, go on your own. But they'll go on the ground and they'll start trying to figure out how to fly, and they will fly. This doesn't mean the baby bird is abandoned if you see it on the ground. It's perfectly normal. That's a natural order of things. That's the way they learn. The parent birds are around, unless it's a rare occasion when they were abandoned. But for the most part, the parent birds are around, and they're keeping an eye on their fledgling and watching it struggle and try and learn to fly. And periodically, they will come by and check on it and even feed it until that bird learns to fly. A lot of people will see baby birds on the ground and automatically think that there's something wrong with it, that it's injured, it's sick, or it's been abandoned, and that's not the case. What we usually tell those people is please, keep an eye. If you do find a baby bird on the ground, keep an eye on it if you're able to. If it's at your house, it's in your yard, and you see it on the ground, keep an eye on it for a few hours. See if there is it's being observed by one of the parent birds and coming by and feeding it, because usually it will. It may take an hour or two, but you'll see them. And then it's perfectly fine, leave them there. Obviously, if the bird's in immediate danger by other animals in the area or something else, that's a different story. Then by all means, please, if you can, either grab the bird and bring them to us. Gently grab the bird and bring them to us. Pick up the bird. Or call us and we'll come get them. But the reason I say how important that is to try and know the difference is because we do get a lot of birds in that really should have stayed where they were. And the reason it's not a good idea is that baby birds have a very low, the odds of them surviving from when they're hatched out in the wild is very low to begin with. Once you take them out of that environment and bring them into us, their odds plummet even further because unfortunately, as much as we can do to hand feed them and provide an environment for them and try to raise them ourselves, we can't provide everything that their parent bird can. It gets certain enzymes from the parent birds when they're feeding it that helps towards its immune system and building its immune system. We can't replicate that. We can give them supplements, but we just can't replicate what nature provides for it out there. So the last thing we want is obviously birds coming in that don't need to, so part of that is to help educate you on when you should and shouldn't. Go through a few more things here. And please excuse me, like you said earlier too, I am feeling under the weather today, so if I seem a little sluggish at times, please excuse me. But I've been under the weather for a couple days myself, so I feel you. Okay. What we do, I'll get through that for you. Here's an example of, since we are in the sanctuary, we have several permanently disabled birds that live at the sanctuary. These are birds that cannot be released out into the wild because their disabilities prohibit them. They would not survive. Just an example, pelican, a gull, screech owl, a cormorant. Cormorant up there, I'm sure you've probably seen on the beach, just like as many gulls and pelicans you see these cormorants up here, or as a lot of people would mistake them for, ducks. But they're actually cormorants. Get bit by one of these guys as opposed to the duck, you'll understand the difference. Okay, who we are. We are we are a nonprofit organization. We get our funding solely on private donations. We do not receive any government grants or anything like that. So all our operating expenses, everything is all a result of private donations. So due to that, we have a very small core staff. All the rest of the personnel you see at the sanctuary are made up of volunteers. This is our staff right here. There is one person that was not on the list, that didn't make it on the list here, so we do actually have one more member of our staff. But one of the things we often joke around at the sanctuary, and we joke around about it, but actually we're very proud of it, is most everybody, the staff here at the sanctuary, we all of us, except for a couple exceptions, started out as volunteers. We did not come to the sanctuary looking for a job, so we all had previous careers and decided to volunteer our time at the sanctuary, and eventually we ended up deciding to go into it full time and actually work there. But we pride ourselves in that our staff members come from various walks of life and various careers. Our Eddie Gayton is our operations manager. He is actually a retired boat captain. So as you can imagine, he spent a lot of his time out on the water. He's seen a lot of seabirds, spent a lot of time with them, loved being out on the water, loved seabirds. That is what brought him to the sanctuary. Our business manager, Brian Tharp, he is actually a retired United States Air Force officer of 22 years. Danny Hall, she is our hospital supervisor. She's the biologist, and she is actually, she's a biologist. She's also a lobbyist, a political lobbyist, is very much involved in, had been involved in politics in the past. Excuse me, like I said, I'm not feeling too great. She comes from mainly that background. Myself, actually I have it listed up here wrong. It's actually not music producer. I'm actually a former concert promoter and a syndicated columnist and radio host. And I retired from that a few years ago, and I decided towards the end I used to do a lot of charity work, and that brought me to the sanctuary, and I was volunteering there for the longest time until eventually I was offered a job myself too, and got there, and I've been there now for 2.5 years now. And Amy Knopf works, she also is part of our hospital staff, works for the Audubon Society. She's a nature photographer, loved birds all her adult life. I mean, her life, she eats, sleeps, and breathes birds, and trust me, that's an understatement. Barb, she's our volunteer coordinator. If any of you or you know anyone who would ever like to come down and help us out and volunteer at the sanctuary, she will be the first one you will be meeting. She is a former competitive ice skater, which I cannot relate to. I'm from Detroit, and I don't. You didn't want to ice skate on the lakes up there because if you fell in, nobody was ice skating on the Detroit River. Susan, she's our marketing and community outreach personnel. She is a linguist, Kat, she's our gift shop sales associate. She is going to college right now. She's she's a Bright Futures graduate. But this is it. And we have one other person, Chris Walls, that does work there. He is the one that, I tell you, out of every one of us there, and we all work hard, much like they do here. You were talking about earlier, you wear many different hats. We all wear so many different hats at the sanctuary because we are a small group. I myself, my main job, of course, I'm the hospital manager, but I also design and run and manage the website, the Facebook page, I do the newsletter. We all have to wear many different hats there. But our other gentleman is Chris. He does the outside, taking care, filling the pools, cleaning the pens, feeding all the outside birds. A job that I don't want. It is a tough job. And of course, the rest of it is volunteers. The rest of it, as you can see, with such a small group, and we're on 1.5 acres, over 120 birds outside, not to mention all the birds that we are treating in the hospital and rehabilitating. It's a big job, and if it wasn't for volunteers, if it wasn't for private donations, we wouldn't exist. And, we are here solely for the birds to help them, and that's what we want to do. And keep them around. This is, I do have information. You can see this closer down there at the table later on if you want to walk up and see. This is just more information on what you can do to help. In this case, this is what we went over with about when and when not to pick up a baby bird off the ground, when you think it needs attention, professional attention, and when it doesn't. We also have this, and you can definitely read at your leisure if you'd like, about how to safely remove a hook from a pelican. If you do accidentally, if you're fishing and you accidentally hook a pelican, or you see someone hook a pelican, we have the information on the proper way to do it to where you're less likely to injure the pelican. Okay, what you can do to support us. Like I said, we rely entirely on your donations. It enables us to continue. Volunteering, always need help volunteering. There is always something to do, and it's just as good as if someone was to donate us money. Donating their time is just as valuable. We can't tell you how valuable it is. There's many things to do if you want to volunteer. It could be rescuing birds. Of course, there's training involved in that, but there's all kinds of things, whether it's volunteering in the hospital or gift shop, outside taking care of the birds. Sponsoring, sponsorships and project sponsors. We have, there's times like right now, there's two major things that we're looking to get done at the sanctuary, big expenses. The whole pool system there, when we took over the facilities, the pool system is very old, and we need to replace the entire pool system. As you can imagine, it's a very big expense. That's one of the things. Another is new pens for our permanent residents. A lot of ways, a lot of businesses help us out, and I'll give you a perfect example. How many of you are familiar with the sanctuary, even if it wasn't us, even when it was the old sanctuary that was on the grounds? Okay. All of you remember the big pelican out front, big pelican statue?
Yeah.
All right. His name's actually Lucky, by the way, in case any of you wanted to know. He's been there for years. We took over the facility last year, and as you may have noticed if you drove by, Lucky disappeared. We didn't get rid of Lucky. Lucky needed a long overdue facelift. He needed body work done, he needed a paint job. All total, it was over $6,000 to restore Lucky. I don't know how many of you drove past lately, but Lucky returned to us just a couple weeks ago, looking all beautiful and good as new. Over $6,000 worth of work was done on him, and a great shop in the area, a business called Hollywood Wheels, did the body work, did the paint job, and donated it entirely to us. Did not charge us at all.
That's nice.
Thank you. So, I mean, that is an example of the generous, some of the generous things that luckily we can find some companies and businesses do for us, and the type of help we need. Had it not been for Hollywood Wheels doing that, Lucky would probably either still be standing there looking very sad, or Lucky may have been gone and there'd be nobody there. So Lucky is back. He looks great. Over $6,000 worth of work. Hollywood Wheels was so generous and donated their labor and their expenses to do it for us. Tell your friends, word of mouth. You know, that's a big way you can help us, and that's a big way you can help the birds. You know, this is Florida, even more so. This is the Tampa Bay area. Huge tourist area. I'm sure all of you have relatives and friends that come down here certain times of the year from up north. You know, if they're looking for something to do, please invite them out to the sanctuary, free admission. We'll give them a tour. Word of mouth is a great way to help us out. There's Pete the Pelican, I'm sorry, Lucky the Pelican. I'm sorry, Charlie Belcher, Fox 13. I'm sure you're aware of him. He was just out, and they filmed us a few days ago for Good Day Tampa Bay, and he made a joke about he kept calling Pete the Pelican, so. Unfortunately, that was stuck in my head. But Lucky, there's Lucky in all his glory. Anyway, I've got a couple birds here I'm going to show you, and I give you examples of what kind of birds we have at the sanctuary. I'll tell you the problems, and then I'll take any questions anybody may have. The first bird I'm going to show you is an American oyster catcher. I don't know if how many of you know or have seen what an American oyster catcher is. You'll see them on the beach. They're a seabird. They're out on the shore. They're a shorebird more specifically. The one that I have today, his name is Ollie. And you will notice when I show him that he'll have his right wing is deformed. It's hanging down, and basically that was due to years ago when he came to the facility. He had a break in it, but when he arrived, it was too late. Healed on its own, and it healed wrong, and it rendered him flightless. So he cannot fly, hence he can't. It's hard for him to provide for himself food-wise, and obviously leaves himself susceptible to predators. So he'll live out the rest of his life here on the sanctuary. And let me grab. He's ready. If you cooperate, let that cooperate. So this is Ollie, an American oyster catcher. So I don't know how many have you guys. How many have ever seen these birds out on the shore? You seen them? Yeah. They got they're hard to miss. The big orange eyes, the orange beak. Like I said, he came to us to the sanctuary, or the sanctuary that was there many years ago. When I don't know. He had a break in his right wing. Excuse me. And by the time it got to the sanctuary, it had already healed wrongly, so it could not be fixed. So it's deformed, and he cannot fly. So of course, as opposed to euthanizing the bird, since he's not suffering,
because it did heal, it just healed poorly. He lives at the sanctuary. He's fed much better than he gets fed outside in the wildlife, trust me. And he's got a pen full of buddies. So.
Keith, do you have any idea how old he is?
Not really. It's hard to tell because, first of all, for several reasons. First of all, it's hard to tell on these guys exactly how old. Usually, without, as far as observation, all birds are different. Some birds you can tell by their feathers, the coloring of their feathers. And depending on the bird, there's many different ways. Some you can't tell, and some they change even throughout the year, regardless of their age, because different seasons bring different plumage in their feathers. So we're not quite sure how old he is. We're not quite sure when he came to the sanctuary. It was years ago. So.
But he seems happy in his home.
Oh yeah. He's not happy right now. So he's going back.
Does he have a mate or does he
I'm sorry?
vocalize?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Does he have a mate or does he vocalize?
He does. He is in a pen with other shorebirds. He does have one other oyster catcher with him. And he's mainly with other types of birds that do socialize together. He's in there with gulls and some terns. But yeah, he actually does have another oyster catcher with him who is also disabled.
How long do they normally live?
The oyster catchers, usually around, I'd say, about 7-9 years, somewhere around there. But you got to realize too, that's out in the wild.
Right.
In captivity, the birds live much longer because they have no predators in captivity, and they've got a guaranteed meal. They're eating the right things. So, for example, the pelicans, the common brown pelicans you see out in the wild, they live on average for about 12 to 15 years. In captivity, they can live up to 30 years. So we have several pelicans at the sanctuary that right now that are reaching close to 30 years old. So.
So Ollie's a male? Keith,
I'm sorry?
Ollie's a male.
Ollie is a male, yes.
Would it be a different color if it were a female?
Well, within, no. Some birds you can tell by the plumage. Most birds, especially your song and garden birds, you can tell it's much more obvious to tell male from female. With the seabirds and stuff like that, it's usually virtually no way of telling. There are some birds you can tell from the plumage, but usually on them you actually have to probe them to find out their sex. For example, once again, the brown pelicans. The only way there is a physical way to tell what sex they are on the pelicans, but the only way to tell is by the length of their beak. The males have a longer beak than the females. That is the only way to tell the different genders in pelicans. I'm sure some of you are saying, well, wait, I see the pelicans all the time and they have different coloring. Some pelicans have white tops, some have brown, some are... That actually has nothing to do with the gender. That has to do with age, and it has to do with the time of year, because they have different plumage during mating season as opposed to non-mating season, and also how old they are. But the only way to actually tell, like on pelicans, whether they're male or female is the length of their beak, and even then, it's hard to tell by eyesight. We actually have to measure the beaks.
What about if they have a yellow top?
I'm sorry?
I always heard, must be an old wives' tale, that if the pelicans are yellow on the top,
The yellow crown they get, that has nothing to do with the gender.
no.
Yep. No, that has to do with the mating season. And it's both male or female that will get the yellow crowns on them.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes.
as my kids would say, I'm kind of bummed to the max because I've just learned the fact that I've been murdering ducks for the last 44 years. And I always thought I was doing something good. If we shouldn't feed bread to the ducks, what should we feed to the ducks? Anything?
If you really feel the need to feed them, stuff that they would eat, you could throw out cracked corn. It depends what exactly you want to do, but they'll eat cracked corn. They will eat different insects. But you can actually go to a pet store and they'll have like duck feed or poultry feed, and ducks will, which is geared towards what ducks will eat and what's nutritional for them.
I've been feeding them through 4 kids and 3 grandkids, and it's like you never knew that you were doing evil.
No, like I said, we've all done it. I've done it too. We've all done it. Your hearts are in the right place. That's why I hate when I come out. That's one of the things I hate talking about because I'm like, oh, everybody's going to think I'm accusing them of murdering birds. And believe me, you feeding them the bread the one time didn't do it. But that bird went from you and then went somewhere else, and then someone else fed it more bread. Someone else fed them bread. Someone, and it's I'm sorry. Question over here.
I heard oatmeal and I also heard grapes. I didn't give them any grapes.
You-
I was just concerned about the grapes getting lodged and
No, I mean the grapes aren't going to get lodged, but
cut them up.
this thing about grapes, and I mean, they will eat them. It's not necessarily something they definitely eat, and it's not bad for them. Out of all the fruit, I try and stay away from grapes. Even like with my, I have a pet macaw at home, and of course I feed them different vegetables and fruit and everything, and I even try and stay away from the grapes only because out of all the fruits in that, it's healthy, but grapes are loaded with natural sugar, which, if their diet is strictly that, it can cause damage eventually, but absolutely, grapes, fruit, stuff like that, if they eat it, they'll eat it. Not all the ducks will eat grapes. Some won't, but a lot will. Before I bring up the next guest here, any other questions regards to that? Or yes?
I see here on this sheet, it looks like a sandhill crane.
Uh-huh.
Do you have one of those up there now?
Yes, we have 2 sandhill cranes actually, yes. We had one for the longest, one we had for forever, that's been at that property. And the second one we got about maybe a little less than a year ago came to us. He's missing his bottom mandible, bottom part of his beak. So he's just got the top and then a little nub at the bottom. So it's hard for him to hunt and he can't really eat. We actually had to invent a special contraption for him to be able to get food out of to eat. So in the wild, he really would starve. But yes, we have 2 sandhill cranes. And great thing about sandhill cranes, I don't know if any of you know, one of the loudest birds you'll ever meet. If any of you have ever heard a sandhill crane, it gives out this honking sound that really sounds prehistoric, really. You'd think it's something that woolly mammoth over there would make back in the day. Little fact though is that if you had no interference, not near any traffic or anything like that, you can hear the call, the honking, the sound of a sandhill crane up to 2 miles away. Of course, if you did not have interference, other audio interference, but yeah, amazing birds. You had a question over here?
Yeah, I was at your facility a couple weeks ago.
Oh, great.
I brought a friend of mine there, and I noticed you have a lot of white pelicans. And I know, I'm Clearwater Audubon Society, I go on trips all the time. I know we don't get white pelicans right here. Just even down at Fort DeSoto. Where are all these white pelicans coming from?
Well, the white pelicans that are at the sanctuary, right now we have 14 permanently disabled white pelicans that are at the sanctuary. These guys have been here at the sanctuary forever. They're not new ones. The white pelicans, first of all, if any of you have never seen one, the white pelican, it's basically the brown pelicans that you see all the time around here.
these guys are like those pelicans on steroids. They're all pretty much all white except some black on the wings and everything. And they're really large. They're not native to Florida. They are actually more from they're indigenous up in the northwestern part of the continent. So along the Pacific coast of the United States and Canada, and mixed in through even the Great Lakes, across to the Great Lakes. They're more, they nest in the mountainous areas, believe it or not. And they are seasonal. So in the wintertime, they do fly south, and they will come down anywhere from right around the Gulf Coast, so anywhere from like Texas, wrapped all the way around here to Florida. They're usually, yes, down in Fort DeSoto, there is always a huge colony, usually everywhere, a couple of them of white pelicans. Once in a while, you will see them at John's Pass every so often. Usually every year, sometimes only every other year, but you will see them at John's Pass. But yeah, they're not here all year round, they're seasonal. But that's where you're going to find them during a certain time of the year. Any other questions before I take out our next guest? All right. I did bring a special guest here. I'm going to go ahead and get him. It'll take me a second. I just got to get him on my glove. And hang on, and I'll introduce you.
Sorry, I should have planned ahead. I would have brought some buffer music for you to listen to while I do this. All right, Rufus. Rufus is looking at me like I'm a little crazy. He's not used to coming out at this time. Most of the events he accompanies me on are during the day. And once you see who it is, you'll think, well, that's kind of funny because he would naturally be up at night. So step back. Step back, Rufus. Step back. Okay.
This is Rufus. This is, can anybody tell me what kind of owl this is?
Screech owl.
Screech owl, yes, it's an eastern screech owl. No, it is not a baby. This is a full-grown adult. This is how big they get. He came to us about, I want to say about maybe 6 months ago, 8 months ago. He came in, somebody found him in their yard, looking kind of dazed and confused during the day. We went out, rescued him, brought him in, and upon giving him an exam, found out that he is blind in his right eye. So, obviously being an owl, that's not a good thing. Being blind in his right eye, it makes it very difficult for him to hunt for food.
Perfect timing, we're just pulling the birds out.
Even more importantly, it makes it, I don't know about more importantly, but it makes it to where he's susceptible to predators. So, at least out in the wild, he would not last that long because he'd have problems finding food, and it wouldn't take long before something else snatched him up and made him food. So due to that, he is living at the sanctuary with us. If you were to come to visit us at the sanctuary, you would not see him in an outdoor pen because he is still in the process of still being trained as an educational bird. He's towards the end, but he stays in the hospital for right now so we can continue to train him, and then eventually he'll be moved outside. But we do have other three other screech owls that are outside that you can visit that are permanently disabled. How many of you have seen these guys out around your houses? Hear them chatting outside? Anything like that? I have. I go out at night. I'll step out onto my patio, and we have a large concentration of screech owls in my neighborhood. So I'll go out at night, and I'll hear them just chatting back and forth in the trees. And it doesn't take me long. I'll see one or two come down, fly down, and catch something on the ground. So at least I know they're keeping my backyard vermin free.
Keith, can you tell us what kind of screech owl is? Because we learned that earlier.
Yes, absolutely. There are 3 different kinds of eastern screech owls. There's a red morph, brown morph, and a gray morph. This one is actually a red morph, which is a little more rare than the other 2 morphs of screech owls. Basically, the only difference between the morphs is just a coloring variant. That's it. What causes it? Why some are red, some are gray, some are brown? Depending who you ask, they'll tell you different answers. But most of them pretty much say anything like that is just a guess. They're really not sure. But there are 3 different versions. This is the red morph, which is the more rare of the 3. A lot of people will mistake these for, I don't know how many of you know what a burrowing owl is, but a lot of people will mistake these guys for the burrowing owls because they look very similar, about the same size. The only difference is the burrowing owls have much longer legs, and you'll see them if you're lucky enough. You'll see them burying holes down in the ground, where you're not going to catch these guys doing that. Excuse me. But yes, so this is Rufus. And anyway, before I go, I want to thank you guys once again for allowing me to come out here and represent the sanctuary. Thank you so much. It's very important to us to be able to come out to events like this, not only to educate the community on birds and what they can do and the importance of saving injured birds, but also to help get involved with all the different communities. Like I said, we're in Indian Shores, so we are Seminole's neighbor. And not to mention, I live in Seminole, like I said, so I was very thrilled to be asked to come out here. Before I go, I'll take any more questions if somebody has it. And if not, please feel free to come up afterwards and ask me some questions. Or come up to the table and take a look. I'm going to put Rufus on a little perch up here so you can all kind of look at him a little bit closer. So, any last questions?
Very good.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
I have to say, this is a very, very patient young woman.
know.
Who's standing right here the entire time.
I
So, you didn't use her as a Vanna White or anything, but, thank you for coming in and helping your dad.
Actually, usually she does. Usually she would be handling Ollie, but Ollie was not being cooperative tonight, so I didn't want her to.
Well, thank you for the two of you for coming. This is our little goodie bag. There's some treats in there. Remember us and.
Hot dogs and bread?
Besides monetary donations, what other kind of donations do you take? Because I think that we can bring household items.
Oh, absolutely. If you go to our website, seabirdsanctuary.com, and you look under the donate tab, there is actually a wish list on different items that we use during the day, on a daily basis. Some of it as simple as just bleach, laundry detergent. We have 2 washing machines and 3 dryers that run nonstop, from open till closed because of all the towels we go through in the hospital. But there's all kinds of different things. So if you couldn't make a monetary donation but you wanted to donate something else, you can look on that. You can also go to Amazon. There's a link on there. We have an Amazon wish list. So you can, I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, but you can go right to Amazon. We have different items there that we need. You can click on it, buy it, and they'll ship it right to us. But there's other options on there too. Please go to the website, go under the donation tab and look, and any help you could do is greatly appreciated.
That's great, and actually, thank you to Hollywood Wheels.
Hollywood Wheels, yes. they
I
are the ones
have
that
seen
did
the
that.
new Pelican, the updated one, and I'll tell you, it's a nice way to advertise that you guys are reopened and doing bigger and better things for the bird community. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you. Come on up, jibber jabber with our guests, have some refreshments.